England joins the list of European countries entering a second national lockdown because of the coronavirus. New restrictions begin on Thursday as experts warn hospitals risk being overwhelmed. A last-minute dash across the Midwest for President Trump and Joe Biden. There are now just 2 days to go before the election. More than 90 million Americans have already voted. And Algerians head to the polls to vote on changes to the constitution. The president promises it will mean a fresh start for a country plagued by decades of corruption. Those are the headlines this hour. Thanks for joining us. You're watching France 24. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced a new 4-week lockdown in England to contain the spread of the coronavirus. The UK is recording more than 50,000 new cases daily on average, raising concern that hospitals could be overwhelmed within weeks. Millions of people are once again being ordered to stay at home except for essential journeys. The government says it may have to extend the lockdown if the number of new cases are not brought down significantly. Well, our London correspondent Benedict Pavio has more now on the reasons behind this second lockdown.
Why the 1-month lockdown starting this coming Thursday across England is very much because the Prime Minister has quoted the data, he's read it, he's listened to the scientists, to the doctors, and it is clear from the number of infections, from the reproduction rate, that they are high, very high, and that in the coming weeks they could actually overwhelm the national health system. Therefore, there would not be enough capacity and terrible choices have to be made on who to treat: a COVID patient, a cancer patient, a road accident patient, whether it's according to age or infection, etc. Impossible or very, very difficult ethical choices. The latest figures we have are for Saturday, and they are to give you some idea of that data and the infections. 21,915 reported new cases. This is across the UK, and 325 further deaths. So certainly the hope is that it will bring the infection rate. The worry is that we could go well past the 2nd of December.
Benedict Pavio there. Well, it's not just the UK. Governments across Europe are imposing strict new lockdowns as the number of people in the region infected with the disease passes 10 million. Austria, Portugal and Greece are some of the latest, ordering people to stay home.
It's one last chance to make the most of their freedom. In Austria, the countdown is on until a partial lockdown takes effect from midnight on Tuesday.
Es ist wie es ist, was soll man machen? Wir müssen es akzeptieren. Ja, Menschen sind wichtiger. Gesundheit ist wichtiger. Leben ist wichtiger.
Under the new restrictions, theatres, cinemas and swimming pools will be forced to close their doors. But restaurants, hotels, hairdressers and schools will remain open. Gatherings with people from more than 2 households will be banned. The Austrian government also announced plans to impose an 8 p.m. curfew.
Leider Gottes deshalb notwendig, weil wir gerade am Abend erlebt haben, dass es oft hier zu Zusammenkünften, zu Partys im privaten Bereich kommt, wo viele Ansteckungen die Folge waren.
It's a similar picture in Greece, where authorities also announced new lockdown measures. They will take effect in the country's capital and other regions that have been hit hard by the virus. Bars, theatres and cinemas have been ordered to close from Tuesday, but the government announced that schools and essential businesses will remain open.
Για να το πω διαφορετικά, δεν μιλάμε για ένα συνολικό πάγωμα της καθημερινότητας. Γιατί θα το επαναλάβω, ένα καθολικό lockdown αποτελεί το ίστατο βήμα που θα πλήγωνε την οικονομία και την κοινωνία.
A new lockdown that is set to last for at least 2 weeks will take effect in Portugal from Wednesday. 70% of the country, including the capital Lisbon, will be required to stay at home unless they need to go to work, buy essential items or go to school. These new measures come as Europe accounted for half of the total number of cases in the world in the last week alone.
Thousands of rescue workers are searching for survivors in the Turkish city of Izmir following Friday's earthquake. 51 people have now been confirmed dead and almost 900 are injured. The 7-magnitude quake was so strong it was felt as far away as Athens. Thousands of people spent a second night sleeping in tents as aftershocks continue to rock the region. It's the final weekend before the US election. More than 90 million Americans have already voted. And for the next 48 hours, President Trump and rival Joe Biden will be making campaign stops across the Midwestern states of Michigan and Pennsylvania, where every vote counts. Ellen Gainsford has this report.
Breaking out the big guns. Barack Obama is on the campaign trail to support his former vice president. Speaking in Michigan, the traditionally left-leaning state, which Hillary Clinton narrowly lost in 2016, Obama argued that his successor was irresponsible and unfit for the job.
I understand this is a president who wants full credit for the economy he inherited and gets zero blame for the pandemic he ignored, but the job doesn't work that way. Tweeting at the TV doesn't fix things. Making stuff up doesn't make people's lives better. You've got to have a plan. You've got to do the work.
Donald J. Trump.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump concentrated on Pennsylvania, holding 4 rallies there this Saturday. The swing state is a major natural gas producing area. Trump has repeatedly said that his rival would abolish the entire US oil industry and ban fracking, claims Joe Biden has repeatedly denied.
Moments ago, I signed an order to protect Pennsylvania fracking and block any effort to undermine energy production in your state.
Trump continues to hold large gatherings of often maskless supporters, ignoring social distancing measures. The US president has been keen to avoid focus on his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. The country recorded just over 100,000 new cases on Friday, a world record. Polls currently give his rival Joe Biden the upper hand, but Trump is predicting another surprise victory for himself.
Well, votes being counted in Ivory Coast following yesterday's tense presidential election there. Alassane Ouattara's decision to seek a third term prompted the opposition to call for a boycott, and at least 30 people were killed in pre-election clashes. The Electoral Commission now has up to 5 days to announce the results. During election day, there were protests and some polling stations were targeted. France 24's Sam Bradpiece has more from Abidjan.
Ivory Coast presidential election day could have gone smoother. A number of polling stations were burnt. Many voters were prevented from accessing the polls altogether because of roadblocks set up by the opposition. And according to the National Police, many polling stations actually stayed closed throughout the entire day. So some people weren't able to vote at all, not even after a delay. Now, all of this is concerning, but it's worth mentioning on the positive side, only 2 people died in clashes, according to the National Police. They did say that there was an outbreak of communal violence, particularly in the east of the country, but the overall chaos was far less than many people were predicting going into this election. Just 10 years ago, at least 3,000 people died in post-electoral violence here. And in the months leading up to October 31st, the government says at least 30 had died. So the fact that the official confirmation says just 2 lost their lives on Saturday, October 31st, is nonetheless encouraging. So far, Sunday, the 1st of November, I should say, things have been relatively calm, particularly here in Abidjan, but we still have plenty more information that will develop during the day. We are expecting statements from the president, from the opposition, and from independent election observers. So we will be sure to keep you posted.
Sam Bradpiece there. Millions of people in Algeria are voting today on proposed changes to the constitution. President Tebboune says a revised constitution will help usher in a new era for the North African state, which was plagued by decades of corruption. The long-term leader Abdelaziz Bouteflika was forced to step down last year following mainly peaceful nationwide protests.
What started as a friendly game of dominoes quickly turns to the divisive constitutional referendum. Many Algerians believe the votes will bring little change.
انا الدستور ما يساعدنيش انا قريته شوفي كي يحوسوا على الفوت يحوسوا الشعب كاع يروح يفوتي الصح راهم يفوتوا ويديروا اللي عليهم قلت لك بصح حنا ما صبناهمش حاجه اللي نحوسوا عليها ما كاش خدمه ولادنا ما كاش خدمه السكنان ما كاش.
President Abdelmajid Tebboune says the proposed constitutional reforms meet the demands of the Iraq anti-government protests, a movement that has seen thousands take to the streets, calling for an end to corruption. The weekly protests ousted former President Abdelaziz Bouteflika in 2019 after he held on to power for 20 years. For many, it's the Iraq that is on the ballot in this referendum.
نورمالمون الشعب يروحوا له يروحوا كاع للمكاتب باسكو علاه البلاد هذه بلاد الحقره دوك هذا الدستور ينحي الحقره وينحي كلش هذا الدستور اللي جاي ينحي كلش ماذا بينا الشعب يروحوا يفوتيو باش يقولوا كلمه نعم.
When President Tebboune was elected last year, he pledged to dialogue with the Iraq. Some say the revised constitution shows he kept his promise. The text proposes new freedoms. It will allow the Algerian military to intervene abroad, and it imposes term limits. But the constitution still gives the president the majority of power. For pro-democracy activists who want a complete overhaul of Algeria's political class, the changes don't go far enough.
Here in France, a suspect's been arrested after a man shot and seriously injured a Greek Orthodox priest in the city of Lyon. It follows Thursday's deadly attack on a church in Nice by a Tunisian migrant. Prosecutors say they are working closely with the National Anti-Terrorism Office. Claire Pacalin has more.
Paramedics and police arrive at the scene. Minutes earlier, a Greek Orthodox priest was shot twice outside his church.
On a entendu deux gros coups, des mortiers. Moi, j'avais jamais entendu ce genre de bruit assez puissant. De suite, je me suis douté qu'il se passait quand même quelque chose de bizarre. Je me suis dit, c'est pas des pétards, c'est pas des petits feux d'artifice. Et on a entendu aussitôt un cri de quelqu'un qui souffrait.
The attack took place at a Greek Orthodox church in a residential neighbourhood in the French city of Lyon. A local police patrol arrived in time to see a man running away and find the priest injured near the back door of the church. The priest, Greek national Nikolaos Kakavelikis, had been officiating at the church for some 15 years.
J'ai hurlé, je pleurais devant mon téléphone ou la télé. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez que je vous dise? C'est un pote, il est adorable. Et moi, en tout cas, à titre personnel, il m'accompagne dans toutes les épreuves de la vie. Moi, j'ai déjà allumé une bougie pour lui, tout ça, bien sûr.
The priest suffered life-threatening injuries and is being treated in hospital. In Lyon, the public prosecutor's office has opened an investigation for attempted murder.
Typhoon Goni has slammed into the Philippines, bringing with it gusts of wind of over 300 kilometres per hour. At least 7 people have died and 1 million people have been evacuated from the storm's path. Typhoons are common in the region, but scientists say that climate change is making them more frequent and more extreme. Kamina Dalek reports.
Even for a country used to 20 typhoons a year, these winds were different. A super typhoon with speeds of 225 kilometres per hour battered the eastern Philippines on Sunday. In some places, gusts hit up to 310 kilometres per hour, equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane, the highest classification there is.
On the available information, lahat ng bagyo so far for 2020, ito po yung pinakamalakas so far.
The storm hit densely populated areas, including Manila, and brought down power lines in several towns. Multiple people were killed. Although the storm has been downgraded, local authorities warned that sustained winds and heavy rains continue to pose a danger. Many buildings in the Philippines are poorly constructed and on stilts, and would not have resisted the winds and high waters. Authorities have evacuated some 1 million residents, but if evacuees are now safe from the storm, shelters themselves also pose a risk.
Natatakot po, doble po ang pangamba namin kasi halo-halo po yung mga tao dito. Hindi katulad sa bahay na safe, may walang labas-labas. Dito kasi maraming tao makahalubilo Tapos nandyan pa yung COVID.
Typhoon Goni comes just 1 week after a previous typhoon hit the same region and looks set to be followed by another storm currently gathering strength in the Pacific.
That's it from the newsroom this hour. Do stay with us. Much more still to come here on France 24.